At the beginning of October, I set out to review one Halloween themed card every single day of the month until we finally got to October 31st, Halloween, which of course is today. Now, I've learned a lot over this month trying to do this challenge because I learned that I'm not very good at keeping promises. You know, halfway through the month we were doing really good. I think all the way up until October 13th we were actually right on track, and then I sort of stopped posting videos daily, so I got really behind, and there was one point when we were like 11 cards behind. We're not that far behind right now, but in today's video we're going to be looking at 4 cards that all follow the exact same theme, and then we're going to look at one bonus card that I forgot to mention earlier in the month. I don't know if I'll ever do this again. I don't plan on doing it for like December or anything like that, reviewing one Christmas card every single day, but it was sort of a fun experiment. I think if I would have posted one video every single day in October, it would have actually been a lot easier to keep up on, but there was like one week where I only posted like 2 videos, so it's really hard to actually stay up on all of these zombie reviews or Halloween themed reviews. Anyway, in today's video, we are reviewing the Legacy of Pumpking, the King of Ghosts. So there are 4 cards that are directly related to Pumpking that we're going to look at in today's video, and it's going to be pretty exciting because if you guys have been following me for a long time, you probably know that Pumpking is one of my favorite monster cards, and I do want to mention here, if you're watching this on Halloween, very close to when this video is released, make sure you stay tuned to my channel tonight at 7 p.m.-ish Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be doing a pretty long live stream, and I might be wearing a costume, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at the original Pumpking, the King of Ghosts, released all the way back in Metal Raiders, one of the very first sets in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. So this is a dark level 6 monster. It's a zombie monster, of course, and it says if Castle of Dark Illusions is face up on the field, increase the attack and defense of this card by 100 points. As long as this Castle of Dark Illusions remains face up on the field, the attack and defense of this card continues to increase by 100 points during each of your standby phases. This effect continues until your 4th turn after this card is activated, and it starts out with 1800 attack and 2000 defense. Now don't worry, Castle of Dark Illusions is actually one of the cards that we're reviewing in today's video, but yes, this card doesn't only have a lot of real quote-unquote effects, it just gains attack and defense points if you have Castle of Dark Illusions out there. And is that very good? I mean, the hard answer here is no. I mean, as much as I like this card, as much as I think this card looks awesome, the actual effect of this card is not very competitively viable, although I do want to mention here that there, at least in some of the earlier Yu-Gi-Oh games, there were some glitches with both Pumpking and Castle of Dark Illusions. I know that one of the glitches is that like Pumpking just always gains attack points even if you don't control Castle of Dark Illusions. That was one of the things that I found when I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh games as a kid, but that sort of thing doesn't actually translate into the TCS. That's not how it works. So as this card stands right now, in most cases, just an 1800 attack vanilla monster that's level 6. Not very good, but what if you combine it with the card that it wants you to play it with? So Castle of Dark Illusions is a pretty interesting card, not only for its effect but also for its stats. Castle of Dark Illusions is a level 4 dark monster with, get this, 920 attack points and 1930 defense points. That is a really weird set of numbers here. You know, if you look at a lot of the older school Yu-Gi-Oh cards, you find more cards with these really strange values, especially on Fiend and zombie monsters in particular, but yes, Castle of Dark Illusions has some really weird attack and defense points. Also keep in mind this card is a Fiend, not a zombie monster, which is kind of strange because all the support that it goes with is zombie support, but we'll read it anyway. So it says, flip, all zombie type monsters gain 200 attack and defense. During each of your next 4 standby phases, each of those zombie type monsters gains 200 more attack and defense. These effects last as long as this card remains face up on the field. What's funny about this though is that you can kind of see what Konami was going for. I'm not saying it's good, but at least you can kind of get what they were doing, because what happens is if you have that Castle of Dark Illusions flip face up while you have a Pumpking, the King of Ghosts already on the field, not only do you get the incremental increases from both of their effects, I mean the Pumpking increases itself, the Castle increases all zombie monsters, but also they both increase the Pumpking immediately. So the Pumpking immediately gains that 100 attack and defense like its effect says, and then the Castle of Dark Illusions immediately gives it that 200 attack and defense. So right away, I mean, it's not going to sound that crazy, but when you first flip summon that Castle of Dark Illusions, the Pumpking will jump to 2100 attack points, which is a little bit more respectable, and every single one of your standby phases, it'll increase by 300. It'll increase the 200 that all zombie monsters will get with the Castle of Dark Illusions, and another 100 for the Pumpking's effect. Now, is this combo that good? Even by old school standards, the answer is unfortunately no, and I think maybe if Pumpking would have been a level 4 monster and both of these cards would have had better stats for whatever level they ended up being, that this might have been a kind of viable, fun, casual deck back in old school Yu-Gi-Oh, but even even as it stands right now, if you go back to the old school decks, this is just not a very viable combo. Pumpking, at least way back in the day, was way too hard to actually put on the field alongside the Castle of Dark Illusions. There's not really that much of a selling point here before you have all the later zombie support, because you could simply just tribute summon a Summon Skull and it would have 2500 attack points instead of the 1800, and then you have to increase it with more effects by getting 2 monsters on the board. We obviously don't really compare cards to Summon Skull anymore because it's a 2500 attack vanilla monster, but at least for old school Yu-Gi-Oh! When we look at a lot of these tribute summon monsters that have attack gaining effects, it's really hard for them to actually beat Summon Skull just on sheer stat value alone. And for over 10 years, we didn't really get any cards that sort of directly mention Pumpking. I mean, sure, it technically got more support as more zombie support came out, but as far as direct Pumpking related cards, we didn't really see one of those until way later, like so far after the card came out, way in 2013 with Pom Princess, the Princess of Ghosts. So this is obviously the daughter of Pumpking, and she is a princess, and this is a card that is a lot more powerful than the original Pumpking, but don't get me wrong, this card isn't super overpowered. It's just not that hard to be better than a level 6 1800 attack monster. So what does this thing do? Well, while Pumpking increases its own attack, Pom Princess is more about reducing the opponent's monster's attack points. So this is a dark level 3 zombie effect monster with 900 attack points and 1000 defense points, and it says if this face-up card is destroyed while in a monster zone, you can place it face-up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell card instead of sending to the graveyard. While this card is treated as a continuous spell card by this effect, during each player's standby phase, place 1 Pumpkin counter on this card. All monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each Pumpkin counter on this card. Now I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that this is like actually not the worst effect that I've ever read and is miles better than Pumpking, because this is kind of neat. So one big thing to know if you're thinking about playing this card as like a joke or something along those lines is that the counter is placed during each standby phase, not just your own standby phases, which is how the original Pumpking worked. It gained attack points during your own standby phase. But because this is putting a counter during each standby phase, I mean, it might not seem like it, but actually after a few turns of this card remaining face up, you will have a lot of counters on it and your opponent's monsters will be reduced by quite a lot. I think in a lot of ways this card is like a more situational version of Burden of the Mighty. However, Burden of the Mighty isn't the most competitive card right now, right? Because it can't reduce Link monster's attack and it can't reduce Xyz monster's attack. Not that that card was ever like particularly useful, but I think in some ways this card is actually a lot better than Burden of the Mighty. I know a very weird comparison to make on a usually competitive channel, but this card isn't nearly as bad as people make it out to be, especially once we look at Pumpking and Castle of Dark Illusions. This thing seems a lot better than those cards. Not to mention, if you don't know this, if you happen to have multiple copies of these cards in your spell and trap card zone, you will sort of load up on counters so fast. I mean, it's actually kind of funny if you're able to pull that off, because you'd be placing 3 counters during each standby phase, and after just like 1 or 2 turns, most of your opponent's monsters would be really small. I'm not saying that's the most competitively viable strategy, but it is kind of interesting to think about, and I have seen a few more meme decks posted with this card than I have Pumpking, the King of Ghosts. But wait a minute, you're thinking, I thought you were going to view 4 cards that were all related to Pumpking and then a 5th card at the end, and that is true. Even though we've only reviewed 3 cards, it just so happens that just a few weeks ago, a new piece of Pumpking Legacy support, a new piece of Pumpking lore was released into the OCG. This is called Oberon, and this is Pumpking, but actually a competitively viable card. Wait a second, that doesn't sound right. Yes, so this is a new card in the OCG. It's going to come to the TCG in the next core set, and I couldn't be more excited. You know, as like one of the biggest fans of Pumpking, this is so cool to see like an advanced version of it that's actually pretty viable in a competitive zombie deck. So what does this thing do? Well, it is a level 7 fire monster, and it's a zombie, of course, with 1500 attack and 2200 defense. It says you can discard 1 zombie monster, special summon this card from your hand. During your opponent's main phase, as a quick effect, you can target 1 zombie monster in either graveyard, special summon it to your field, then banish this face-up card until the end phase. Banish the special summon monster when it leaves the field, and then you can only use each effect of Oberon once per turn. So I've actually been playing the modern zombie deck a lot on stream over the past couple weeks, and I've been doing so not only to test for this night's stream, because spoiler alert, we will be playing a Pumpking deck, but also because I really wanted to know what this card was capable of in the hands of a modern zombie player, because before I was playing the deck, I knew like conceptually what the cards did. Obviously I just reviewed all the cards from a structure deck that was released last year, but I still wanted to know like what the deck actually could do and how this card sort of fit fit in with the normal combos. And I can say right now, after playing the deck for several streams, this card seems pretty darn good. So there's a few things you might not realize if you don't play zombies. First off, yes, this card combos with Zombie World quite a bit because it is special summoning a zombie monster from either player's graveyard, and while you have Zombie World on the field, all of your opponent's graveyard cards are zombie monsters. So for example, against an Orcus deck, you could revive Dingirsu and send a card to the graveyard on your opponent's turn. That's a pretty cool combo, but just in general, there are a lot of really cool cards that you can revive, and you can even revive Link monsters because fortunately you don't have to summon the cards in defense mode. What's really cool about this card is it's actually really annoying for your opponent to get rid of it because it constantly is banishing itself until the end phase whenever you use that effect. Also, keep in mind, when you are special summoning a zombie type monster from your opponent's graveyard or your graveyard while you have Vampire Sucker on the board, you will get to draw a free card. I like this card a lot, not only for those reasons, but also it's just a free special summon. You know, when I've been playing the zombie deck over the past couple weeks here on stream, a lot of times what happens is that you don't have like enough cards that are extenders. You have a lot of really solid normal summons like Ozuki and Unizombie and Shiranui Solitaire, but as far as actual extenders, besides playing cards like Danger Monsters to get things out of your hand, sometimes you have a hand that's way too many normal summons and you just want to discard some of them to start your combos, and this is a card that can now allow you to do that. Also, because this card is level 7, not level 8, you can use it for synchro summons with your level 1 tuner monsters like Glow Up Bloom or Glow Up Bulb or any other cards you're playing. Maybe you're playing Effect Veiler or something along those lines. You can tune this card into Psyframe Lord Omega or any other number of really strong level 8 synchros. I love this card for its name, I love this card for its artwork, I love this card for how it adds to the Pumpking legacy, and I couldn't be more excited for it to come out in the TCG. But wait a second, we still have one final card to review for the month of Halloween because that only brings us to 30 cards, and this is a card that even though it is technically going to be the very last card that we're going to review, I'm not going to put it on the 31 on the calendar. That is reserved for Pumpking, the King of Ghosts himself. I truly believe that Pumpking is like the embodiment of Halloween in a Yu-Gi-Oh card, and seeing reviewing all 5 of these cards in one video, I feel like I can just arrange them in whatever order I want to. But the very last card we are reviewing, the final card for October, is Ill Blood. Ill Blood is a level 6 dark zombie type monster. It has 2100 attack and 800 defense, and it actually is a Gemini monster. We don't usually review Gemini monsters on this channel, especially not ones that were competitively viable, but make no mistake, this isn't a bad card. In fact, Ill Blood, when it was originally released as a secret rare way back in Tactical Evolution, it was a very, very expensive card that many players couldn't get their hands on without shelling out like over $50 a copy. After this card is Gemini summoned, it has the following effect. It says once per turn, you can special summon one zombie type monster from your hand or from either player's graveyard. When this card leaves the field, destroy all zombie type monsters special summoned by this card's effect. Now keep in mind, when this card came out, it was way before a lot of pieces of zombie sport. You didn't have Goblin Zombie, you didn't have Mizuki, you didn't have a lot of those cards. Obviously, it was even before synchro summoning, but the gist was that in Tactical Evolution, we not only got this card, but also Zombie Master, and Card of Safe Return was still at 3 copies per deck. There was a very deadly and successful zombie type deck that played Ill Blood and Zombie Master and Card of Safe Return and Pyramid Turtle and a whole bunch of revival spells and traps, and it basically just swarmed the field and OTK'd a lot of opponents during a format where a lot of decks just weren't capable of doing that. For the most part, when you look at old school Yu-Gi-Oh, even the decks that were considered back then to be very aggressive and OTK based were wildly inconsistent compared to this crazy zombie type deck. The amount of special summons and the amount of draws that you could get with those older school zombie decks was just so much higher than any other deck of their era, and it truly was one of the craziest decks we've ever seen in older school Yu-Gi-Oh. Thank you so much to all of you guys that stuck with me through October as I got behind and even more behind on reviewing all of these cards. I'll make sure to put the final calendar not only at the end of this video, but also on Twitter. I really thought it was a cool idea, and I'm glad I stuck with it. I know I got behind at some points, and I sort of didn't really anticipate that actually happening, but it still was a lot of fun. I'll see you later, though. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.